Okay, just explain who you are.
Mwendan Tarangwe. I'm a cultural anthropologist. I study hip hop. I have written a book called East African Hip Hop, Youth Culture and Globalization, that looks at three countries of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, showing how global processes have allowed youth to use music to assert themselves in the public space, and also to talk about some of the issues that they go through every day, but also to challenge some of the processes that have been brought by globalization. In a way, I'm showing globalization as a two-way process that allows but also impedes on some of the livelihoods of many East Africans, but serving mostly young East Africans, because we know that in much of Africa there are more and more young people. It's stated that 2/3 of Africans are below 30 years, and that is a big big demographic. And music has allowed them to enter into the public space, to express themselves, to be creative, but also to reinterpret and bring back cultural processes and tradition into their lives all the time. Yep.
Okay, so just basic questions. So what's the big market out there? I see Africa is a whole country.
Yes.
So what's the market? I guess do they purchase music out there? Or
they do purchase music, but most of the artists do not make money through selling their music. They make money through performing at live shows and doing promotions for different groups or companies, because the market for music is not as good, but also there's a lot of pirating of music that goes on, and so many artists don't make the money out of the songs they can sell. But mostly it's because their songs become popular and they can
go do shows,
and those shows make money for them. They get endorsements and make money out of it.
And what's the what country got the popping market? What's the most popping country of the market?
The biggest with the market?
Yeah.
Mostly we have a big market in Nigeria, you have a big market in South Africa. There's some market in Kenya as well. But again, it depends on the level of income, among sort of disposable income for many of the people in those areas.
Okay, okay. And is there like a record store out there, a big chain record store out there, or is it just everything's digital?
There are stores for different musics, and also there are people who use their own websites to sell music. There's a portal that you could go to and download music for probably 99 cents. There's some that sell it from their backpacks, and so it depends on the abilities of the artist.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who you consider the Jay-Z out there? Who's the big guy out there?
It depends on each country.
Okay.
And for mostly, I would say in Tanzania, I would say artists like Professor J have been very popular.
Who would be one guy? Who would you say? One guy.
That's
the one guy would be.
J has been very popular.
Okay.
In Kenya right now, the most popular is.
How about the popular in Africa? Just Africa. Who would you think is the most popular guy right now?
I wouldn't.
It's so diverse.
Yeah.
It's so diverse.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so diverse that you cannot tell. Which artist.
You just go by country.
And mostly because some of the artists sing in the local languages, so if they don't cross over, they're not able to.
Okay.
To get to the audiences that are not speaking the language that they're using.
Okay. Yeah. Who are the biggest audience you think?
Biggest
audience.
Biggest audience.
Biggest fans. Who has the largest fans you think?
I don't know who has it. It depends on the area. Because it's who has.
So it's real localized. Everything's real localized.
Yeah, localized. Mostly in the region. If it's Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, or within South Africa, Zimbabwe, you can have those kinds of areas.
So top three, we say. Give top three.
Top three artists?
Yeah, top three artists.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. All right.
Reggie Rockstone in Ghana. I would say Giuliani in Kenya. I can't think of any other.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's hard to get.
Okay. Yeah. And last question: why you said a lot of them they had like a 6-month run and it was like one hit and done?
Yeah. A lot of if you follow, I mean, within a 5-year period, you'll see so many names of artists that have come up, but a lot of them don't produce more than one song.
Okay, why so?
And I haven't done enough research to tell you why that has happened, but there are very few artists that have been able to sustain themselves through more than 3 or 4 years. Because a lot of artists are dependent on selling their music in order to be able to produce more music. And when the song does not produce that kind of income for them to be able to sustain themselves and also produce other music, then they fall off. So it's very hard for them to sustain themselves through music. But there are a few that have been able to.
Okay, all right. Definitely. Thanks a lot.
All right.
But also something else was happening. The music scene had been dominated mostly, when you think of African music, it was dominated by Zairean music, Zairean rumba. And a lot of, when there was trouble in Zaire, a lot of musicians moved to Nairobi, moved to Dar es Salaam, where Nairobi had some of the best recording studios in the region. So they moved there and had found a base. Most of the rumba is called dance music, so they filled up clubs, they played at agricultural shows, they did all kinds of things. And so that formed the basis for live music. And when hip-hop came in, it came in and people were not sure because it had this association with thugism. You know, it's like, who does this thing you're not supposed to be doing? This is sort of stepping out of what we know music as, you know, where we have guitars and we have bands, people that practice and, you know, do rehearsals and then you play. But at some point, the population was changing, and there were more and more youth forming the populations, both in urban and also rural areas. And so that also allowed for people to have access to some music. In Kenya, the first real turnaround was when groups started singing in local languages, or mostly in a mix of Swahili and English, which is normally called Sheng. And the group that started that was Kalamashaka. And Kalamashaka was a group of a few young men from one of the residential areas called Dandora. And they had done a few sort of live shows, competition. There were music competitions in city clubs during the day. You know, on a Sunday afternoon, people would go and compete, and whoever wins, it's like 2,000 shillings or something like that. But they had started to come together as a group, and they opened for, I think it was Coolio, and people booed them because they were singing in Sheng, and they want, you know, you have to understand that because we grew up at a time when Kenyan music had a special 1-hour spot on radio. The rest was European, American music. So it was the other way around. I mean, here, if you have a special spot, it's for world music. The rest is mostly American music. For us, it was different. So people didn't want to, you know, they wanted to hear all these kinds of songs from Europe and America that they heard in clubs. So when these guys started rapping in Sheng and talking about issues of poverty and police harassing them all the time, they were stepping on two different toes. One is, those are issues you don't talk about. You just come out of a very, very impressive regime, so you don't know who is watching. No DJ wants to play that on air, even though they are free to do whatever they want. They know, well, my boss, who owns this station, is also the minister in the government. You know, so you don't want to play with that. The other one is that they are used to, you know, lyrics in English, so it was difficult to break out, but they did. There was a show that was introduced late night where they allowed some local DJs on one of the FM stations, and he started playing underground music, and people would start to like it, and that opened up opportunities for some of the hip hop artists. At the same time, there were groups forming in different parts. The major group was that had sort of underground music, had collectively called themselves the Mau Mau Camp. And those of you that followed the Mau Mau story, about keeping your hair long in dreads, talking about access to land. Can you play the Ali Halisi? This is a group now that they formed as one group, but they split. One went to Mombasa, the other one left, stayed in Nairobi. Now these are that one. And tell me what's the beat, the basis of the beat is, if you can recognize. What is that? 50 cents? Yeah.
If eu vendo e vou feliz, quando eu fiz muita arma cheia, simplesmente quando cada uma paz, virei na paz. If eu vendo e vou feliz, quando eu fiz muita arma cheia, simplesmente quando cada uma paz, virei na paz.
All their hair and dreads.
From a street Zanai, Robbery Town, Tuki represent Rashid. Nawazi, Wanaoji Unganami, Juhi sound, Ya Ukaslani Nami, NA.
That's Nazizi, is the first, that's about 99. Nazizi is the first real sort of female artist to come out publicly and do this kind of music. And it was the first lady of hip-hop. In fact, there was a joke that when you ask kids in primary school, who was the first lady, they'll say Nazizi, not the president's wife. But they're talking about Kaya hip-hop. Kaya are the shrines that are used by the coastal groups as places of religious worship. And so they're saying we're taking our hip-hop back to the roots. And then the ones in Mau Mau camp in Nairobi, they're saying we're taking it back to the struggle with the Mau Mau. But of course they started, with beats that are familiar and use them to get to the people. And they're basically talking about, this is our town, we are going through hard times, but we are here. We don't want the people who just sing in order to make money. We are here trying to talk about issues that affect the people. All right. And then one of the other things that happened was the use of language in Dar es Salaam, in Tanzania, mostly Dar es Salaam and Arusha. Something happened that in the turn of events and the political system where Nyerere's socialism failed or was choked because of multiple processes. The Tanzanians had to adopt sort of a very capitalist mode of production, and they called their system on Dar es Salaam was called the bongo. So bongo is the brain. So you no longer expect the family or the government to do stuff for you as it was in Nyerere's time. You use your brain to make it. So bongo land became the place where you use your brain, and out of it became bongo flavor, which is the style of sort of hip hop mixed with R&B, raga. That's why you get bongo flavor. It's a flavor of the city called bongo because that's why you use your brains to survive. Everybody is hustling. But in that hustling, what do you sell that is different? And some artists chose to go the dance style, Others chose to use specific ideas about traditionalism. And there's one on Maasai. If you know of the Maasai, they're sort of the quintessential African ethnic group that has refused to change. The one you had played down here, yes. This guy is called Mr. Ebo. And he's basically presents himself as a Maasai. He's not Maasai, but he comes from the Arusha group, which is a Maasai culture. And that song was popular in 2000. We couldn't find a copy of it. It was so popular. Thank you. And basically what they're doing is that he's saying, I am a Maasai. I am the one that really astonishes all other cultures because of the way I refuse to conform to westernization. I am Masai, I'm the one who goes all over the city, but I still keep my identity. I am Masai and people use me as their security guards because they know I am fierce. And it's almost playing over the same kind of stereotypes the British used of the Maasai, you know, unchanging, sort of savage, these people don't want to change. But now, it's become an icon of refusing to be adulterated by Western culture. And so the way these artists are trying to do is to say, okay, what is it that we have that people recognize that allows us to sort of go back to our roots? And so hip-hop now becomes not just this new thing, but one that also reaches in and picks up our tradition and fronts it in public and celebrates it. There's another group called Explasters. If you can play the Explasters, also use the same Maasai theme. This is Oldonyo Lengai. That was the toughest hike I've ever done in my life. It's an act. I think it's an active volcano. The white wash you see is volcano ashes. On a good day, you'll see the lava bubbling at the top of the. But this group is called Explasters, but they call it hip hop, Maasai hip hop. And you'll see the red cape that is mostly used by Maasai. This young man unfortunately died in the neighborhood. He had gone to sort of intervene when a friend was being attacked and he was stabbed to death. But he's talking about living in this kind of community where there's no longer fair game. The ones with the big fat cheeks and big bellies are the ones that are taking everything. They even bribe the referee, so the game is no longer fair. And talks about some of the struggles they have. And a lot of artists, some that do a little bit of hip hop, use Luganda, and they're very popular. But it's hard for them to cross over the border as the Swahili-speaking or singing artists would do in East Africa. As you know, East Africa, Kiswahili is a language that is used in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Now it's also common in Rwanda. Burundi has taken it as the language of instruction. South Sudan is using it. So it's a language that cuts across many places. And singing in that language allows for more audiences to understand what you're saying. The one artist that did succeed well is a raga artist called Chameleon, who spent time in Nairobi, recorded some of his songs with the Nairobi recording studios, and has continued to sing in Kiswahili. And that has made him very popular across the boundaries. And then one other thing is to go back to the Ukoo Fulani, and that we have the notion of how do we even cross over in Kenya, especially in Christian music. And one artist that has done that is Giuliani, and Jesse had a chance to interview him. I wanna show you. He's one of the most popular artists now across all genres. This is a song recorded, I think, in 2004.